From this scenario, it doesn't seem that Sarah is too stressed, but she may have some stress. As it says that Sarah has 68% scoring average in her league games compared to 86% in training, meaning she's performing worse in her league matches. So it's shown that she may be feeling a bit of stress and pressure as she is performing better in training. As I mentioned in the first scenario, there is eustress and distress. It is shown that Sarah does not have eustress as she's performing worse, so she would have a bit of distress, but it's at a low level of distress, as it is not that big of a decrease, as it is only an 18% decrease in scoring average. This slight lack of performance may be because of the crunch of the games and the importance of them causing her stress. You would say her teammate Rachel has eustress, as she seems to be very confident even though her whole team doesn't perform that well in their league games. It says she thrives off the atmosphere and gets on with it whatever the circumstances. As I also mentioned, the stress process is where it starts with the demand and the way someone takes it and how it affects their performance. With Sarah, she has that slight negative perception of the demand, as it is a crunched game, so it has put some stress on her and has reduced her performance. There are some symptoms of stress, such as somatic, cognitive and behavioural. Somatic stress may be the increase in heart rate, increase in breathing rate, which is suggesting that someone is stressing. Other somatic stresses may be increased metabolism, increased heat production and increased adrenaline. These symptoms are all caused because the body is panicking slightly and wants to do things quicker. Sarah's heart rate and breathing rate may be slightly increasing in games where they may be losing or she has missed a shot, so she might have some symptoms. Cognitive symptoms are things like reduced concentration, boredom, mistakes, and unable to make decisions. These are all psychological responses, perhaps from the frustration of Rachel, who isn't supporting Sarah, and it can have effects on Sarah. The last symptom is behavioural symptoms. These symptoms are like talking and eating too quickly, moodiness, habits, smoking and drinking. These are all the responses of demand that has been given to someone and the way they take this demand. The more behavioural symptoms that they will show, the more that someone will be stressed. Sarah is showing some behavioural symptoms, such as making some mistakes as she is not scoring as much in the league games. Rachel seems to have some symptoms such as frustration and anger towards Sarah, showing that she has some symptoms of stress as well. There are some stress categories which can cause stress, such as the sport environment and personal life. The sport environment is a huge effect on people's stress. For example, a team with arrogant, aggressive and dominant players can affect someone's performance in a game where, if the team is perhaps losing, their teammates may have a go at them and get frustrated with them, and that can cause pressure and stress on the player. You can see from this scenario that Rachel gets frustrated with Sarah and does not seem and it seems to be affecting her a bit. So it can cause some stress for Sarah. Another type of category for stress is the personal life. Something may be happening in someone's personal life and it can have effect on their stress levels in their sport. For example, there may be trouble at home, such as divorcing parents, and it can stress the child out. Whilst the divorce is still taking place, the child still may be playing in their sport and may be thinking about family instead of focusing in their game, and their performance levels start to drop. This doesn't seem to relate to Sarah, as she is only seen to be performing worse in the league games, and if there was a family problem, then Sarah would be performing bad throughout the whole time playing, even if it might be training or local matches. Everyone feels anxiety at some point, and one of the main reasons of anxiety is sport. Sarah seems to have shown a bit of anxiety when she plays her league matches because she has performed worse in them games compared to her training and local matches. As I've stated before, there is somatic and cognitive anxiety, and somatic anxiety are the physiological effects of someone being anxious, such as an increase in heart rate and breathing rate. Sarah may be feeling, as before her league matches, that it slightly affects her performance negatively. And then the cognitive anxiety are the psychological effects, and Sarah may be feeling quite nervous, however she may be feeling excited as well, as she's not even playing that too bad. She's not playing too bad. So psychological anxiety is not too strong. However, she does have some, as it seems to make her performance worse. There is also competitive anxiety. This is where there is perhaps competition and it can create anxiety for people. Hackford and Schweinmeiser said in 1989 that competitive state anxiety usually follows patterns of subjective feelings of tension and inadequacy combined with heightened arousal of the ANS, showing that the surroundings of other people can create tension and a high arousal because people want to dominate in their team. This relates very much to elite athletes, as most of them are trying to be the best they can be. Therefore, they will be dominant and frustrated if someone blocks them from being the best, and that can form anxiety and affect their performance positively or negatively, depending on how they take it. People can feel threatened over other people and can cause arguments and even more frustration for players, where the anxiety is also caused by the effect of this. Sarah's teammates definitely have that competitive anxiety, and especially Rachel. When she gets frustrated with Sarah and doesn't understand why she's not playing very well, and that is because Rachel feels that competitiveness from Sarah and wants to be known as dominant and powerful. This may be for control, as Rachel may want to be seen as the leader, so she has to be aggressive to her teamates to perhaps intimidate them. There are factors for anxiety where people fear over them and perhaps not performing well and have fears on things such as injury. Sarah may have a fear of failure when it comes to league matches because she feels it is too important to make any mistakes which distract her from a game and performs worse. Whereas if she had the confidence, then she would play better. The crowd is a factor as Sarah may have that fear of judged by the crowd, and it has put more pressure on her, and there might even be family members in the crowd, meaning that she might think that she will disappoint them. Therefore, there are many factors towards anxiety in the sense that there is always someone will worry about. For Rachel, it seems like she fears having that lack of control, so she keeps acting aggressive and frustrated to make sure she is the leader and showing good competition. Finally, there are ways to measure anxiety, and there are some tests to show what state of anxiety athletes are at. One of them is Martin's sport competition anxiety test in 1977, where it will show the anxiety in competitive situations. Some things need to be taken into account, as there has already been state and trait anxiety, how people react to the situation, the actual situation itself, and how experienced people are in their competitive sports. All of these are taken a look at, and people can decide what state of anxiety you are at. Martin believed that the trait anxiety plus the current situation gives the perception of the situation, which either creates that competitive anxiety or not. Therefore, with Sarah, her trait anxiety may be there, and her state anxiety may be there. However, as we saw in the scenario, perception of it is as she is realising the effects that Rachel has given her, so she may have that. State anxiety as well. So it may not create that high amount of competitive anxiety. Another test for competitive anxiety is Martin's competitive state anxiety in 1990, where it measures the somatic and cognitive anxiety of someone. The way to measure cognitive anxiety is to see the reactions of players perhaps before the match or when they make a mistake. The reaction of this can show if the person is feeling anxiety or not. And for measuring somatic anxiety, they can check the physiological changes to someone when they're perhaps just about to play and see how much their heart rate goes up and stuff like that. They can also check their anxiety a few weeks before the competition and then a couple of nights before the competition. And if there's a dramatic increase, then it shows that there is somatic energy. Therefore, Sarah might have that somatic energy a few days before the competition. Sarah seems to have quite high arousal as she performs quite well in her games, and some theories such as the drive theory believe that the high arousal means a better performance as well, as Sarah feeling some anxiety, which is quite a high level of arousal. Rachel seems to have higher arousal as well due to frustration and trying to have control. She is also determined and motivated as she thrives off the atmosphere. Rachel may relate a bit more to the drive theory, as it kind of proves the U inverted theory doesn't always work, as there is evidence to show that Rachel has high arousal and can seem to perform well. There is also another theory that is made for arousal, and that is the catastrophic theory. This was by Frazee and Hardy in 1988. This theory was based on there sometimes been evidence that arousal does not always gradually improve or deteriorate performance, as the U inverted theory does. Sometimes some types of arousals can destroy a player's performance or make a player's performance. This theory is based on whether how high or low someone's somatic and cognitive anxiety is. If the somatic anxiety is high and the cognitive is low, then they would follow the rules of the U inverted theory. However, if the somatic anxiety is low and the cognitive anxiety is high, then there may be different types of performance changes. For example, a football player who was having a good game, however they might have scored an own goal and caused psychological stress and anxiety that may have let the team down. Therefore, this can dramatically decrease this player's performance. This could relate to a player such as Jonathan Woodgate, who was playing well until he scored an own goal and the performance dropped to a point where he got a red card. So with the scenario, it doesn't seem like Sarah is evidencing the catastrophe theory, as there hasn't really been a point where she has dropped performance dramatically, only gradually. So it does show that there are criticisms in this theory where Sarah's high level of arousal has dropped her performance slightly instead of dramatically, so it isn't always accurate. Secondly, testing is quite hard as it is hard to only get to understand the psychological anxiety of people, which is very hard to get, as it is not as accurate and true what the players always think and feel. Another criticism is that the theory could be predicting players' performances, as if someone makes a mistake, they may still play well, but this theory is suggesting that there will be a big drop in performance. In 1986, Harron realised different athletes deal with arousal in different ways. He created the eyes off model, where he shows 3 different types of athletes and what type of arousal causes that optimal performance. So one athlete performs best at low arousal, one at medium arousal, and one at high arousal. It is known that the introverts perform best at low arousal when there is more concentration and they're focused in their game, where extroverts perform best at high arousal. For example, someone like Tiger Woods perform best at low arousal, as he needs to be relaxed and calm in order to focus on his game, and someone like Ronaldo, who is an extrovert, would thrive with this challenge and motivate him towards his optimum performance at high arousal. Sarah may be performing at her best at medium arousal, as too much anxiety and fear may be too much arousal for her, and the sport requires energy and arousal, meaning she probably performs her best at moderate arousal. Rachel, on the other hand, will be performing her best at high arousal, as she is like Ronaldo and she wants to take that challenge and thrive from it. The effect of over-arousing create attention for yourself, as you might start to overact in situations and may get to a point where you attention seek yourself and you're psychologically out of control. This can affect your reputation and your role in the team, and if it gets serious enough. There are strategies in order to control stress, anxiety, and arousal, physiologically or psychologically. One way for somatic is to try and control your breathing rate. If you focus and slow your breathing rate, it can help you focus on the game and perform better. Then there's cognitive strategy, which is try to visualize your goal. Perhaps in a football match, you start to visualize your goal, and then that might mean you have that motivation to do it. You have the RAS in your brain, which controls the nerves and has a role in your arousal, where it increases your speed and it can make your body move too quickly. And as a result of this scenario, Sarah seems to have quite high be quite highly aroused, but not too aroused that she's performing okay. But optimum arousal